guys, and welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of the little battlefield study series that I've been making. So phase 1, part 1 of the series was in Lulworth and Bovington, and the aim of going there was to understand what happened in the battles of Cassino and Anzio in World War II, and we did this by looking at tanks and machinery and modes of transport that they had in those times in those battles, as well as firing weaponry and driving amphibious vehicles. It was very, very fun. I will link the video here so you can watch it if you want to. But this is part 2 where we actually get to go to Italy. We're going to go to Cassino and Anzio and see firsthand how it was and get a greater appreciation for those battles. And honestly, I'm really excited. So I've got my suitcase here. Oh, that's my alarm ready to go, right on cue as well. Yeah, I'm going to be late otherwise, so let's go. And honestly, I can't wait to share this battlefield study portion with you all. So let's go. Morning, so it's the first day here in Italy. We're in Cassino at the moment. We got here quite late last night, so needless to say I'm a bit tired this morning. Also, the weather is beautiful, so perks of being in Italy, what can I say? Yeah, it's going to be good to be outside today. Hopefully I might get a tan. I say that now. Tomorrow the clips are going to be just red, bright red, and then I'm going to be like, I regretted that. Whilst we're in Cassino, the first visit was to Rapido River, which is also known as Bloody River. This was where the 36th US Infantry Division tried to cross the river but were unsuccessful, as when they crossed in boats they got cut off from reinforcements and had to retreat after heavy losses. This built on our knowledge gained in Bovington during phase 1 of the battlefield study tour, where we looked at different river crossings and then we could understand how it was done and why this particular one failed. After visiting Bloody River, we moved on to Castle Hill and learned about the battle that took place there. We also learned about why this was such an important position for the Allies to have as a stronghold in order to take Monte Cassino. Before we left Castle Hill to move on to Monte Cassino, we laid a wreath.
The men of the Essex Regiment who fought and fell at Cassino. We will remember them.
Monte Cassino was the final battle site we looked at on this first day. It was heavily bombed during the war, but it is now rebuilt. The rebuild features stunning architecture, and as the monastery is situated in the mountains, you get a great view of the whole of Cassino. Just below Monte Cassino there is a Polish war cemetery, which was our last stop of the day, and our bus driver laid a wreath as he had family that was Polish and had links to the war, which was actually a really nice touch for us to witness. So we're back and it's the end of day 1. So today was a really interesting day. We first started out looking at the river crossings, which kind of builds on what we did in Bovington, because we looked at amphibious vehicles and it was kind of understanding, okay, this is the technology that we have now to be able to do this, but back then the boats and the the terrain that they had to move across, and appreciating the difficulty of that. And then we moved on to Castle Hill, and that was really about looking at how they defended that structure before moving on to the monastery, which honestly you saw in the clips, it's like it just dominates the territory. And then we looked at the Polish war cemetery and laid a wreath there because of the sacrifices the Polish made in that battle in order to take Cassino. So it was actually a really interesting day to be able to move through the scenery in Cassino and link that in your mind of the battles and how they progressed. So it was really good. But now it's dinner. I'm starving. The food at the hotel has actually been really good. So let's go to dinner. So it is now day 2. I feel like I've caught the sun and I've been here like a day, so I'm gonna blame like my pale Irish roots for that. But yeah, today is gonna be a good day. Basically, we're gonna look at the fighting before the first Battle of Cassino and how those regiments saw it. That's the plan in the itinerary anyway. But before we do that, I wanna go down to breakfast. I am absolutely starving. On day 2, after breakfast, we went into the conference room and worked through some plan exercises looking at platoon tactics before going to Calabritto and looking at the ground. So we looked at several battle locations in Calabritto which were fought by the guards before the battles of Cassino happened. So day 2 was sort of a prequel to what we saw on day 1. So it's morning of day 3 in Cassino. We're basically packing up. It's the last day in Cassino before we move to Anzio. So we've got a few more stops here in Cassino before we make the trip up to Anzio. And I feel like a few of us are quite excited actually to go to Anzio because it's nearer to the beach. It's much nearer an actual like town, so you can do stuff in the evenings. Because we do get quite a lot of spare time on the trip, which is good. Especially all the trips that I've been on previously to this with the army has been more like training stuff. So you don't really have much time in the evenings. You normally finish at like 9, 10 o'clock at night. So here actually we're done by like just before dinner, go for dinner, you got the whole evening. So at the location we're at the moment, it's quite remote, like there's not really much around here, so we all just sort of change the hotel. But when we go to Anzio to actually be able to like go to the beach and explore and stuff and actually see a bit of Italy whilst we're here is going to be really, really fun. So that's the plan for today and the next few days. But before then, I'm going to head down to breakfast and then we move into the conference room, which basically is what we've been doing every day. The first few hours of every morning, we've been going into the conference room, discussing what we're going to be doing that day, doing some plan exercises, appreciating the history before moving on to the actual site, which has been really beneficial actually to cover both like it in theory but also in practical when we get to the locations. But as I said, until then, breakfast. After breakfast on day 3, we checked out of the hotel and put our bags into the coach before moving on to the Commonwealth War Cemetery of Cassino, which is overshadowed by Monte Cassino itself. First stop today, now we're outside the classroom, is the Cassino War Cemetery, which is where we're at now. As you can see in the background, there is the monastery in Castle Hill, which is what we saw on day 1. So it's actually quite cool to be here to really see the impact of the battles whilst being overshadowed by where the battles took place. After looking at the Commonwealth War Cemetery of Cassino, we moved on to look at another river crossing. It was interesting to compare this one with the Battle of Rapido River and think about why Rapido River was unsuccessful, why this one was successful, and think about how we would do this now in 2022. The last stop before going to Anzio was looking at the Minturno War Cemetery.
During the advance, the enemy opened heavy machine gun fire at point-blank range.
Once in Anzio, the first stop was to the Anzio War Cemetery. After this, we went to another battle site fought by the Grenadier Guards, before moving on to our final cemetery of the trip, which was the Anzio Commonwealth Beachhead War Graves.
Killed on the 9th of March 1944, commanding his company during an enemy counterattack. His son Colin was not quite 1 year old when his father was killed.
Here we laid some more wreaths before heading back to the hotel for an early start the next day. Gosh, I feel about as tired as I look. So today we went to 2 war cemeteries, as you guys saw, and laid wreaths, paid our respects, and then we also went to a battlefield site for the 5th Battalion Grenadier Guards during the War of Anzio in 1944. And I think that's one of the key takeaways that I've had on this battlefield study tour, because I think when I went on to it, I didn't really necessarily understand what I would get out of it, thinking about, well, we're going to be looking at World War II and, you know, what help is that going to be? But it's actually been really, really beneficial to be able to look at the past, look at, you know, regiments that are then formed into the cap badge that I wear now, and be able to understand what they did and take away lessons from it to think about what I would do now. And it's honestly been really, really beneficial. I feel like the learning curve has been steep because I'm quite new to the army, so when we're talking platoon tactics and things like that, I'm grateful that I'm with people that are of higher rank than me, so you can kind of learn from them. But yeah, learning curve has been steep, but it's been very, very interesting, and it's been a really, really enjoyable week. So that's what we got up to today. And now, as you can see, bed is in the background, it's calling me. So it's 11 o'clock at night right now. We have to get up at 5 a.m. to be able to have breakfast and then drive up to Rome for our flight, which is pretty early in the morning. So sleep is going to be very short. So I look tired now, I'm gonna look probably worse in the morning. So yeah, ultimately we're gonna catch up and I'm gonna debrief when I'm back in the UK. So I've been back a few days, trying to get life back to normal after being away. And I just thought I'd hop on quickly and I guess summarise my thoughts for the trip. I think I've articulated the main points in this video already of what I've taken away from going on this battlefield study tour, namely having knowledge about World War II that I didn't previously have, you know, meeting new people that across the battalion that I wouldn't necessarily meet, and generally just being able to learn something in theory and then go and do the practical and see it and be able to apply the theory that you've learned into that practical scenario. I think that style of learning has definitely enabled my knowledge to grow so much, especially about this era. So like generally it's been such a steep learning curve, and I do want to emphasize that this is one of the first things I've done within the army really since I passed basic training, and I was with people in my syndicate that was like sergeants and corporals that had a lot of experience about things that we were talking about, and I just had to like nod along and just like rapidly write things down and just like basically trying to learn everything on the fly. So it was a really helpful experience, but a steep learning curve. And I think going further, because I have intentions to go to Santos as an officer, hopefully, that what we learned on that battlefield study actually helped with what I'll probably do at Santos and generally the officer role, in terms of every morning before we went out on the ground we would do like sand table exercises, and if you're unfamiliar with them you can Google them, they're like publicly accessible to have. I'll put the link to the book of the sand table exercises we did in the bio if you're interested. But basically they mocked out a scenario of, okay, you've got a company or you've got a platoon and you're the commander. This is your objective, this is the equipment you have, this is the time frame, go, what would you do? And you just like plan through what you would do, and you have like maps of the ground and stuff. So we worked through them as a syndicate, and obviously the first few that I did, I was like, I don't know what to do. So I definitely relied a bit more on the higher ranks. But then after you do a few, you kind of like pick up bits and then you can see the picture, and it basically gave me a really big appreciation and like a better understanding of tactics. And it's amazing what you can learn within 4 or 5 days on that topic. No means like versed in tactics at all, but I feel like I've learned so much and I feel so much more confident about tactics now, and especially tactics comparing what they would do in World War II into what they would do now, and just generally like military knowledge in that respect. So that's my big main takeaway from going on this battlefield study tour. So I would definitely recommend, if you have the opportunity to go on a battlefield study tour, to go. I think they're so much fun. I've had a really great time. It's a great opportunity to get abroad and like see the ground, meet people, have a good time really, as well as learn. So why wouldn't you want to go? But yeah, I hope you like this video documenting my first battlefield study tour. Part 1 was in Bovington, part 2 in Italy, and I will see you guys in the next video. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.